The call came at dawn. A whisper through the static of the police radio, hushed and urgent. We have a situation. High priority. Federal involvement. FBI Special Agent Daniel Monroe had spent years unraveling the darkest corners of American conspiracies. He had seen things that hardened his heart, that made him question the very fabric of truth. But nothing could have prepared him for what he was about to uncover. A body had been found in an upscale neighborhood of Savannah, Georgia. Not just any body, a retired Hollywood legend, a man who had spent his final years in quiet solitude, far from the blinding lights of Los Angeles. Gene Hackman. Monroe's team had arrived at the scene long before the press got wind of it. The house stood eerily still, a grand estate wrapped in Spanish moss and silence. No forced entry, no immediate signs of foul play. The air inside was stale, untouched for days, and the moment Monroe crossed the threshold, he felt an unnatural stillness. Something was wrong. Gene Hackman and his wife, Lillian Everett, had been dead for over a week before anyone found them. Two bodies, lifeless in separate rooms. A dog, locked inside a closet, starved to death. And in the midst of it all, an untouched plate of food on the dining table, as if time had stopped mid-meal. It wasn't just a scene that disturbed Monroe. It was the call that followed. Before forensics could even process the details, the FBI was ordered to take over. The directive came from the highest levels. Secure the bedroom. No local authorities inside. Why the bedroom? Monroe wasn't told. His clearance should have granted him access to all classified details. But this time, something was different. The room was locked from the inside. When the agents forced it open, what they found changed everything. The bed was made as if no one had slept there in weeks. The curtains drawn tight, blocking out the world. But there, hidden within the walls, was something no one could have anticipated. A secret compartment. Inside, a small safe, slightly ajar, its contents partially removed before they could be examined. But not everything had been taken. Among the remaining files were old, brittle pages covered in handwriting, letters, or perhaps warnings. And at the center of it all, a Bible. Not just any Bible. A worn, ancient-looking book, its pages annotated with frantic notes, underlined passages, and symbols Monroe had never seen before. His hands trembled as he flipped through it. One verse had been marked in red ink, circled over and over until the paper had nearly torn. For nothing is hidden that will not be revealed, nor is anything secret that will not be made known and come to light. Luke 8, verse 17. What had Hackman been trying to uncover? Then came the second shock. One of the letters bore the FBI's official seal, a warning addressed to Hackman himself. Do not speak. Do not share. For your safety, remain silent. Monroe's blood ran cold. This wasn't just a mysterious death. This was something bigger. And then, before he could even process the magnitude of it all, one of his men burst into the room, pale-faced, shaking. Sir, we found another body. A fellow FBI agent, dead in the study. His badge was still clipped to his belt, his firearm untouched. No struggle, no sign of forced entry. Just a lifeless body sitting in front of an open laptop. The screen flickered with one final message, typed but never sent. Jesus showed me the truth about Hackman's bedroom, but I don't think I'll live long enough to tell you. And then the screen went black. Something was coming. Something bigger than Monroe could comprehend. The case had only just begun, and already bodies were falling. But why? What had Hackman uncovered? And what did Jesus have to do with it? Before we continue unraveling this shocking mystery, I have something special for you. If you want to be part of our community and see your name featured in the next video, comment below with your name and city. We will be sending a special message to those who join us. Imagine hearing your name called out, reaching thousands of people. Your moment to shine is here. So don't forget to leave your name, your city, and a like on this video. And if you want to stay with us as we uncover the truth, make sure to subscribe and join our growing community. Together, we'll reveal the secrets they don't want you to know. The moment Agent Daniel Monroe stepped into the dimly lit study, a suffocating weight pressed against his chest. The room smelled of old paper and dust, but beneath that, something more, something metallic, almost like blood. The dead FBI agent sat slumped in his chair, his head tilted unnaturally to the side. No forced entry. No sign of struggle. It was as if he had simply stopped existing in the middle of his work. Monroe's eyes darted to the laptop in front of the body. The screen had gone black, but he knew that whatever had been typed, those last chilling words, had been deliberate. Jesus showed me the truth about Hackman's bedroom, but I don't think I'll live long enough to tell you. His fingers trembled as he reached for the keyboard, pressing the space bar. The screen flickered to life. Empty. The message was gone. Monroe's pulse quickened. He turned to one of his men. Pull the hard drive. Now. The technician moved swiftly, but when he removed the laptop's casing, his face drained of color. Sir, it's already been wiped. There's nothing here. Monroe exhaled sharply, clenching his jaw. Someone was watching. Someone was controlling the flow of information before they could even piece it together. His gaze shifted back to the body. The agent's badge identified him as Jonathan Fields, a 14-year veteran of the Bureau, a good man, a careful man, and now a dead man. Something about his posture struck Monroe as odd. Fields had died looking at something. His eyes, though vacant, were still locked onto a single point in the room. Monroe followed his gaze, and then he saw it. On the far wall, behind an aging bookcase, was a cross. A simple, unassuming wooden cross, nailed unevenly to the plaster. It might have gone unnoticed in any other setting, but there, in a room filled with secrets and a man who had died with Jesus' name on his lips, it felt like a message. Monroe stepped forward and touched the edge of the cross. It wobbled slightly under his fingers. Loose. Instinct kicked in. He grabbed the base and pulled. A sharp click echoed through the silent room. And then the wall shifted. A section of the bookshelf swung open, revealing a hidden space no one had accounted for in the original house plans. Dust billowed into the air, and Monroe's flashlight pierced through the darkness, illuminating a small, cramped compartment. Inside, lying on an old wooden table, was a worn leather-bound journal. Monroe's breath caught in his throat as he lifted the fragile book. Its cover was cracked with age, but the initials burned into the leather were unmistakable. G.H. Gene Hackman. Monroe flipped open the first page. The ink was smudged in places, the handwriting frantic, erratic. One passage stood out immediately, the words underlined over and over as if the writer had been desperate to etch them into permanence. They told me to stop. They warned me, but I saw what I saw. And now, Jesus has revealed what must be known. Monroe's fingers tightened around the book. He flipped another page. There are rooms that hold more than just memories. Some places are built to contain power. Hackman's bedroom was never just a bedroom. It was a gateway. The air in the room felt colder. Monroe barely noticed his own men whispering behind him, shifting uncomfortably. Another page. Another frantic message. I should have never opened that door. And then, one final scrawled sentence at the bottom of the page. Barely legible. Almost shaking. The light came first. Then the voices. Then the shadow. Monroe closed the book sharply. His heart pounded against his ribs. He had spent his entire career uncovering the ugly truths behind human corruption, government secrets, hidden agendas, classified cover-ups. But this felt different. This wasn't just about conspiracy. This was something else entirely. A cold gust of air swept through the room, flickering the dim light bulb overhead. Somewhere outside, a dog howled in the distance. Monroe turned to his men. Bag everything. We're leaving. Because in that moment he knew this wasn't just about what Hackman had found. It was about who didn't want it to be discovered. And whoever they were already watching. The journal felt heavier than it should have been. As Agent Daniel Monroe carried out of the house, he could feel something pressing against him. Not physically, but in a way that made his pulse quicken, his instincts scream. Something was off. His team worked quickly, securing the crime scene, but Monroe's mind was elsewhere. The weight of the words scrawled inside Hackman's journal refused to leave him. The light came first, then the voices, then the shadow. What had he seen? The moment Monroe stepped outside, the night air hit him, crisp and cold against the skin. He glanced up at the sky. The moon hung high, casting long shadows across his state's sprawling lawn. A bad omen, he thought. His phone buzzed. A private number. He hesitated before answering. Monroe. A voice, deep, measured, and laced with something he couldn't quite place, spoke on the other end. You have something that doesn't belong to you. Monroe stopped walking. He turned instinctively, scanning the darkened street. His pulse slammed against his ribs. He was being watched. Who is this? He demanded. Silence. Then, in a voice that sent a chill down his spine, you shouldn't have opened the book. The call cut off before Monroe could respond. He stared at his screen. The number had already disappeared. A warning. The agent took a slow breath, forcing himself to push forward. He had dealt with threats before. But this one felt different. Inside the dimly lit FBI field office, Monroe spread the journal across his desk, carefully flipping through its brittle pages. The writing changed from entry to entry, sometimes controlled, sometimes frantic, sometimes almost illegible, as though Hackman had been writing in terror. And then he found it, a sketch. The lines were rough, drawn in deep, heavy strokes of ink. It depicted a door. No, not just a door. Something beyond it. Hackman had scribbled words beneath the drawing. I heard them whispering. They stand at the threshold, waiting to be let in. Monroe's fingers hovered over the page. His mind raced. What had Hackman seen? His gut told him to stop, to shut the book, to walk away. But he didn't. Instead, he kept reading. The room that shouldn't exist. The next page held something even worse. Hackman had described an experience. A night when he had woken to something pulling him from his sleep. Not a noise, not a dream. Something real. I woke up at exactly 3:17 a.m. My body felt heavy, like something was pressing down on me. I couldn't move, couldn't speak. And then I saw it. Monroe's breath caught as he read. The door. It was open. I know I locked it. I always do. But that night, it wasn't just unlocked. It was wide open. Hackman had drawn an X over those words, as if trying to erase them. The light came first, a glow from the hallway. Then the whispers. I wasn't alone. They were there, standing in the doorway, waiting. Monroe could almost picture it. The stillness of the night. The cold dread of waking to something that shouldn't be there. But then came the final line. I blinked, and the doorway wasn't empty anymore. The rest of the page was smeared. The ink blurred as though Hackman's hands had shaken too much to write. Monroe exhaled sharply, leaning back in his chair. His fingers tapped against the wooden desk, his mind working through the details. This wasn't paranoia. This wasn't the ramblings of a dying man. Hackman had seen something, and now Monroe had seen it too. The unseen presence. A knock at the door made him jolt. He turned quickly. A fellow agent, Patel, stood in the doorway. Sir, there's something you need to see. Monroe rubbed a hand over his face, closing the journal carefully. What is it? Patel hesitated. He looked uncomfortable. We pulled the security footage from Hackman's house. The external cameras didn't show anything unusual, but the bedroom camera recorded something. Monroe's stomach tightened. Show me. They moved to the tech room, where a forensic analyst was already queued up on the footage. The timestamp read 3:17 a.m., the same time Hackman had written about in his journal. The footage was grainy but clear enough. The bedroom was empty. Then, suddenly, the door creaked open on its own. Monroe's hands clenched into fists as the camera continued to roll. The room remained still for several seconds. Then, shadows, not figures, not people, just shadows, moving, writhing, unnatural, and then the feed cut to static. No explanation, no interference, just gone. Silence filled the room. No one spoke. Monroe turned to the analyst. Was this tampered with? The analyst swallowed hard. No, sir. This is a raw footage. Monroe's mind raced. He had seen unexplainable things before. But this was something else. Hackman's words in the journal echoed in his mind. Some places are built to contain power. Hackman's bedroom was never just a bedroom. It was a gateway. Monroe had to know more, because now the question wasn't just what Hackman had seen. It was who or what was waiting on the other side. The security footage changed everything. Agent Daniel Monroe sat in the dim glow of the FBI's forensic lab, staring at the frozen image on the screen. The last frame before the video cut to static. The shadows, moving, writhing, alive. It defied explanation. It mocked logic. But the part that unsettled Monroe the most wasn't what he could see. It was a gut-wrenching feeling that whatever was in that room, it had seen them too. Patel shifted uncomfortably beside him. "Sir, do we even know what we're looking at?" Monroe took a deep breath, keeping his voice steady. "We know Hackman wrote about this exact moment. He knew something was there." He exhaled slowly, rubbing his temples. "And now we do too." Silence. And then something even stranger. The analyst working at the station cleared his throat. "Sir, I need you to see this." Monroe turned his attention to the screen. The technician had zoomed in on the shadows. With each passing frame, he enhanced the image, clarifying details. But the closer they looked, the worse it got. One of the shadows had a shape, not fully human, not fully recognizable. It was watching. Monroe's breath hitched. "Enhance again." The analyst hesitated. "Sir, I don't think." "Do it." The image sharpened, and there, emerging from the darkness, was a face, not completely formed, not clear, but unmistakable. Eyes, watching, and then words appeared, not on the screen, not on the footage itself, but in Hackman's journal. Monroe had left it closed on the table beside him, but now, as he turned back, he saw something that made his heart stop. The book was open. The pages had turned on their own, and scrawled across the newly revealed page, in Hackman's shaky handwriting, was a single chilling sentence. "They know you're watching." The hidden message. Monroe didn't speak, didn't move. His mind scrambled for a rational explanation. He had closed that book. He had left it untouched. So how? He reached for it cautiously, flipping backward to where he had last left off. The pages were different now. More words had appeared. Frantic scribbles, hurried notes, almost as if Hackman had written them at the very last moment before. Monroe swallowed hard. One passage stood out, underlined 3 times. "If you open the door, you must be ready for what comes through." His fingers traced the ink. He could almost feel the panic behind Hackman's words, the terror as he wrote them. Hackman had seen something in that room, something no one was meant to see. And now Monroe had seen it too. "A message for you. Before we continue, I want to do something special. In every video, we send out a personal greeting to those who are part of our community. If you want to be featured in the next video, drop a comment below with your name and city. Imagine hearing your name spoken in front of thousands of people, a moment just for you. This is your chance to shine, to be part of this growing community. So go ahead, type your name, your city, and don't forget to leave a like on this video. I'll be reading the comments, and you just might hear your name in the next one. Let's make this community stronger than ever." Monroe couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching, not just from the footage, not just from the words in Hackman's journal. But now, the air in the room felt heavier, pressing against his chest like an invisible weight. The overhead light flickered once, twice, then steadied. No one spoke. The silence stretched, thick and unnatural, as if the very walls were listening. Patel exhaled shakily. "Sir, I think we should." But before he could finish, the lab door slammed shut. No wind, no draft, no reason. Monroe and his team froze. The analyst's fingers hovered above the keyboard, his face pale. That wasn't me. No one had touched it. No one had moved. And yet, the door had sealed itself. Monroe's instinct screamed at him to get out, but his training forced him to stay calm. He reached for his weapon, not because he expected to use it, but because in that moment, he needed something real to hold on to. And then, a whisper, low, almost imperceptible. "But there, The sound wasn't coming from outside the room. It wasn't even coming from the hallway. It was coming from the speakers. The laptop, still displaying the frozen frame of Hackman security footage, had begun playing audio on its own, faint at first, like a static hum. Then, a voice, distorted, layered, more than one, and then, clear as day, it spoke. You shouldn't have opened the book. The power cut. Everything went dark. The unexplainable presence. Monroe's breathing was steady, controlled. He had been in dangerous situations before. He had dealt with cartel informants, rogue agents, deep cover operatives. But this was different. A cold chill crawled up his spine. The darkness felt unnatural, as if the room itself had become something else. Patel fumbled for his flashlight, his breath audible in the suffocating silence. "Sir," before he could respond, the monitors flickered back to life. But the screen wasn't showing the footage anymore. It was showing them, a live feed from inside the room. Monroe's blood ran cold as he watched the screen. There they were, the three of them, standing motionless in front of the desk. But something was wrong. The camera feed was delayed, half a second behind reality. Monroe lifted his hand slowly. The reflection in the screen followed just a moment too late. The analyst gasped, "Sir, what is this?" Then, before anyone could react, in the live feed, Monroe turned around. But in real life, he hadn't moved, and the Monroe on the screen was staring directly into the camera, expressionless, eyes locked onto them. And then he smiled, a slow, unnatural curve of his lips. Monroe's stomach twisted. That wasn't him. It was something else. Watching, mimicking, waiting. The light snapped back on. The screen went black. And just like that, it was gone. What had Hackman opened? Monroe had to get out of there. He slammed the journal shut, grabbed the files, and turned to his team. "We're moving. Now." Patel nodded quickly, already packing up the equipment. The analyst didn't even argue. As Monroe stepped into the hallway, his mind raced. This wasn't just about Hackman anymore. Hackman had opened something he was never supposed to see. And now it was spreading. What if his death was an accident? What if it wasn't murder either? What if the thing Hackman saw, the thing that whispered in the night, was still here? Monroe barely heard his own footsteps as he moved through the dimly lit hallway. His grip on Hackman's journal tightened, his mind racing. He had seen things before, things that didn't add up, cases that defied logic. But this was different. Something was attached to this case. Something that went beyond FBI protocol, beyond criminal investigations. Something that shouldn't exist. Patel was 2 steps behind him, his breathing heavy. "Sir, we need to talk about what just happened back there." "No!" Monroe cut him off. "Not yet." They needed space. Distance. They needed to get out of this building before they started asking the wrong questions in the wrong place. The moment they stepped outside, Monroe felt it again. That pressure. Like unseen eyes tracking every move. They got into the car. No one spoke. The only sound was the rhythmic clicking of Patel's fingers against the dashboard. A nervous tick Monroe had never seen before. Something about that made his stomach turn. The pages that weren't there before. They arrived at Monroe's apartment just after midnight. It wasn't ideal, but it was secure. The moment they stepped inside, Monroe locked the door and pulled the curtains shut. Patel sat at the table, rubbing his temples. "This is insane. We need to escalate this to..." "To who?" Monroe snapped. "You saw what happened. Who do you think is going to believe this? The same people who wiped the footage before we even had a chance to process it? The same people who sent us into that house knowing damn well something was waiting for us." Patel didn't answer, because they both knew the truth. There was no one to report this to. Monroe placed Hackman's journal on the table and opened it carefully. The old pages rustled under his fingers, and as he flipped through them, he felt his pulse quicken. Something was wrong. Patel saw it too. "The pages," he whispered. "There are more." Monroe's throat tightened. They had read every page. He had counted them. There had been a beginning, middle, and end. Hackman's last words had been scrawled in desperate ink, his terror etched into the pages. But now, there were more pages than before, and the ink was still wet. Patel exhaled sharply. That's not possible. Monroe's fingers hovered over the fresh writing. The words hadn't been there before. He knew it, but they were there now. And the first new line sent a bolt of ice through his veins. You brought it with you. Patel's chair scraped against the floor as he shot up, his face pale. I don't want to be here. But Monroe couldn't move. His eyes were locked on the next passage. The words jagged and desperate. It knows you can see it now. Then, another line, one that made the air feel too thick to breathe. It's in the room with you. A loud thud came from the far end of the apartment. Both men froze. The journal snapped shut on its own. Monroe did not turn around. The unseen visitor. Patel's voice was barely a whisper. Tell me you heard that. Monroe nodded slowly. His muscles locked in place, his breathing shallow. Something was here. A shadow moved across the dimly lit hallway. Not a person, not an object, just a shadow. It lingered, stretching, shifting, waiting, and then it moved, fast, straight toward them. The lights exploded. Glass shattered as the bulbs above them burst, sending shards raining down. Monroe and Patel ducked, their instincts kicking in before their minds could catch up. Darkness swallowed the apartment, but not silence, because in the distance, in that same static-filled, layered whisper that haunted them before, it spoke. You shouldn't have opened the book. Monroe grabbed Patel by the arm. We're leaving? Now! They didn't walk out of the apartment. They ran. And just when they thought they had escaped, the nightmare was only beginning. Join our community. We need you. Before we move forward, I want to take a moment to say something important. We don't make a single dollar from these videos. We don't do this for money. We do this because we believe in bringing you these stories. Stories that need to be told. And the best way you can support what we're doing is by liking this video and subscribing to the channel. Your support helps us keep going. It helps us build a community where we can uncover the truth together. So, if you're enjoying this, if you're feeling the chills like we are, hit that like button and subscribe. It means the world to us. And trust me, you don't want to miss what happens next. The city lights blurred as Monroe sped through the empty streets, hands tight on the steering wheel. The echoes of that whisper still rang in his ears, crawling under his skin like a sickness he couldn't shake. You shouldn't have opened the book. He had spent his life chasing truths buried in lies, government secrets, conspiracies, hidden agendas. But this was different, because this wasn't just a cover-up. This was something watching, something waiting, the final revelation. Patel sat in the passenger seat, breathing heavily, gripping the journal like it was the only real thing left in the world. Where are we going? Monroe didn't answer right away, because he didn't know. All he knew was that nowhere felt safe anymore. He needed answers, the kind that don't come from reports or crime scenes. He turned sharply onto a quiet back road, headlights slicing through the darkness. And then it happened. The radio cut to static. The dashboard lights flickered, and the journal, still in Patel's hands, snapped open on its own. A new message appeared. Fresh ink. Wet ink. Patel's voice cracked. Monroe, look at this. Monroe's hands clenched the wheel as he read the words. It's here. The car jerked violently as if something had slammed into it. Monroe barely kept control, skidding to the side of the road. The engine died instantly. Silence. Thick. Suffocating. The headlights dimmed, and for the first time, Monroe truly felt it. It was here. Not in the house. Not on the footage. Not trapped inside the journal. Here. Right now. Patel swallowed hard. What do we do? The air inside the car grew ice cold. The windows fogged over, but not from their breath. Something was writing on the glass. Slowly, deliberately, a single word. Run. And then the shadows moved. Monroe didn't think, didn't wait, didn't hesitate. He slammed the door open and ran. Patel was right behind him, feet pounding against the asphalt, lungs burning. Behind them, the car flickered, and then, as if the very air had swallowed it whole, it vanished, No explosion, no sound, just gone. And in its place, a single object remained, the journal, still open, still waiting. And on the final page, written in the same frantic, desperate hand, it doesn't stop, it doesn't end, and now it knows your name. What happens next will change everything. Monroe and Patel never spoke of that night. Not in reports, not in classified meetings, not to anyone, because some truths aren't meant to be told. Some doors, once opened, can never be closed. And some things watch, waiting, listening for the next name. Your journey doesn't end here. This mystery is just the beginning. If you're ready for something even more powerful, more revealing, and more life-changing, then click on the next video appearing on your screen. It will change your life. All you need to do is click and watch. And before you go, if you want to keep receiving blessings, like this video and comment amen below. Those who do will continue to be blessed.